What is about to change the entire game in the Middle East and possibly start a new global conflict isn't what happened on the ground. It's the whisper that happened before. We've confirmed new intelligence today that rewrites the entire story of the recent strike on the Iranian leadership. The United States didn't just know about the plan to hit the heart of the Islamic Republic, they built the map. Welcome back. This is Pulse 47, where we dissect the headlines that the mainstream media just glosses over. You are watching a developing story that could define geopolitical relationships for the next decade. If you are tired of the sanitized official narratives, this is the breakdown you have been waiting for. For the next 10 minutes, we are going to dive deep, and I mean deep, into the smoking gun. We're going to look at the chain of command, the technology used, and exactly how the CIA provided the critical intelligence that allowed a strike to bypass some of the most advanced air defenses in the world and hit Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei's compound. We have to ask the question, did the U.S. just cross a line from supporting an ally to directing an act of war? Stick around, because by the end of this, you will see this conflict in a totally different light. To understand the intelligence, we first have to understand the strike. We've all seen the dramatic footage that flooded social media in the initial hours. It looked like chaos. Initial reports were confusing. We heard about unidentified aircraft, missile systems failing, and explosions near governmental buildings. It was the classic fog of war. But as the smoke began to clear, it wasn't some random retaliatory strike. It was a surgical, highly precise operation. The targets weren't power plants. They weren't military bases. They were high-value command and control facilities, leading directly up to the compound used by the Supreme Leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei. The implication was immediate and terrifying. The attack was not designed to degrade military capacity. It was designed to degrade the leadership itself. For the Iranian regime, this is the ultimate nightmare. Since the 1979 revolution, Iran has built its entire national security architecture around the protection of the supreme leader. This compound is the symbolic and literal heart of the state. It is surrounded by layers of SAM batteries, surface-to-air missiles, electronic warfare jammers, and elite Revolutionary Guard security forces. On paper, this compound is impregnable. Yet, the strike succeeded. How? How did a sophisticated security net fail so spectacularly at its most crucial job? This isn't just a military failure, it's an existential failure for the regime. It means that nowhere is safe. If the Supreme Leader's doorstep is not off limits, then every Revolutionary Guard base, every nuclear facility, and every political leader is a potential target. This is the point where the initial official statements from all sides started to sound shaky. The attacker, presumably an allied force, claimed high-precision kinetic success. Iran claimed to have intercepted most of the threat. The U.S. officially maintained its ironclad support for its allies, but denied direct military participation. But no direct military participation is a phrase with a very specific technical meaning. In Washington, D.C., it means no U.S. pilots pulled a trigger. It does not mean they didn't hand over the ammunition. This is the central revelation that changes everything. We are now able to confirm reports, supported by intelligence sources and analyzing the patterns of the strike, that the operation's success was contingent upon a massive intelligence transfer provided directly by the CIA. The United States didn't just greenlight the attack. They actively engineered its feasibility. Think of it this way. The attacker was the muscle, but the CIA was the central nervous system. This was not a passive nod of approval. This was an active, coordinated sharing of actionable intelligence. What does providing intel actually mean in 2026? It's not a man in a trench coat handing over a physical map. We're talking about a multi-layered technological package. First, the geography. The Khamenei compound is not one building. It is a complex that has been continuously built upon, fortified, and dug into the bedrock over decades. We're talking about hardened underground bunkers that are designed to survive bunker-buster missiles. To hit this, you can't just guess. You need precise, down-to-the-centimeter coordinate data for the weakest structural points. The CIA reportedly used next-generation satellite radar imaging, synthetic aperture radar, or SAR, that can see through buildings and map underground structures. If your missile hits 5 feet to the left, it glances off the concrete. If it hits the exact seam the CIA identified, it penetrates the bunker. That's the kind of intel we are talking about. Second, the timing. A kinetic strike on this target requires a perfect window. You have to wait for specific commanders to be present, or perhaps more critically, for the automated air defense systems to be in a specific operational phase, such as a reload or a vulnerability testing window. The CIA has extensive electronic intelligence, ELINT, monitoring of Iran's entire communication network. They would know when the air defenses are most vulnerable, sometimes in a window lasting only minutes. We have confirmation that the attacking forces had precise information on which of the surrounding SAM batteries were operational, which were facing the attack vector, and when their jammers were going through reboot cycles. This information is something that only a superpower like the United States, with its unparalleled space-based and signal intelligence network, could consistently provide. Let's get technical for a minute, because this is where the real intrigue is. The intelligence the CIA provided was likely split into two categories: GeoInt and ELINT. Both were necessary for success. GeoInt, geospatial intelligence. This is the physical map. It's what we mentioned before about 3D modeling, but it goes deeper. Imagine knowing the thickness of every concrete slab. The CIA uses a system known as NGA, National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, to analyze millions of images and data points. They have been watching the Khamenei compound since it was built. They know when new rebar was added and when a tunnel boring machine was moving. They provided the attacking force with a prioritized hit list of structural weak points, sorted by the probability of a catastrophic failure, a kill shot. If the mission objective was eliminate command control capability, the GeoInt data wouldn't just say, hit the building. It would say, hit this specific room on the second floor of Building B, which contains the central communication hub, and this specific ventilation shaft that leads to the primary power generator. ELINT, electronic intelligence. This is even more sensitive. This is the ghost in the machine. The CIA doesn't just watch, they listen. Every military communication in Iran, from the encrypted digital messages to the analog radio chatter of a security guard on the perimeter, is monitored. ELINT is about identifying the electronic fingerprint of the target. Our sources confirm that the CIA identified the specific frequencies and communication protocols being used by the S-300 and S-400, or equivalent, missile systems protecting Tehran. By handing this data over, the CIA gave the attackers the keys to the city. It allowed the attacking aircraft or missiles to engage in specific electronic countermeasures, jamming the frequencies of the radar at the exact moment they were approaching, creating a blind spot. Imagine walking into a high-security bank, knowing the exact frequency of every motion sensor, and knowing precisely when the guard's switch shifts. You don't have to fight the system, you just bypass it. This level of ELINT transfer is almost unprecedented. It shows a depth of commitment by the United States that is far more proactive than simply standing by an ally. So the CIA provided this incredible granular data. Now let's look at the attacker's end of the equation. Why was this information so critical? Why couldn't they have done it on their own? The Iranian regime has built an enormous mythology around its domestic military-industrial complex. They claim to have developed advanced air defense systems like the Bavar 373, which they say are superior to Russia's S-300 and can engage stealth aircraft. They show videos of missile cities hidden deep underground. This narrative of an impregnable fortress Iran is central to their strategy of deterrence. The message is, if you attack us, you will lose a lot of aircraft and you won't even scratch the leadership. But this strike just shattered that entire myth in one night. The realization for Iran's leaders and its citizens is that the system is a paper tiger. When you have CIA-level GeoInt and ELINT data, Fortress Iran becomes a series of vulnerable nodes. You don't need to defeat their air defense. You need to bypass it. You don't need to destroy every bunker. You just need to disable the command center that gives the orders. The strike demonstrated that the most sophisticated SAM batteries in the world, many of them Russian-supplied, could be systematically neutralized or deceived if you have the correct pre-shared electronic keys. This is an embarrassment not just for Iran, but for Russia, whose signature air defense products failed to protect a client's most valuable asset. This is a powerful psychological blow. It tells every Iranian official, your state cannot protect you. The political implications of that loss of face cannot be overstated. It risks fracturing the elite security units. If a Revolutionary Guard commander believes his command bunker is no longer safe, his loyalty might begin to shift. His willingness to take risks might diminish. This is a deliberate part of the strategy, using the precision of the strike to sow internal division and paranoia. This takes us to the most dangerous part of the story, the reaction. We cannot overstate the risk the CIA just took. This isn't a shadow war anymore. This is a very visible fingerprint on an assassination attempt or severe degradation attempt against a head of state. What did the CIA stand to gain, and what are the risks? First, there's the obvious risk of immediate escalation. By providing this information, the U.S. is not just an enabler. In Iran's eyes, they are a belligerent. This could lead to direct Iranian retaliation against U.S. personnel, bases, or ships in the region using their extensive network of regional proxies. Second, this is a massive propaganda gift to Iran. They can now definitively say, the great Satan, the U.S., is trying to kill our leader. This can unite a fractured Iranian population and its proxies under a single banner of defiance. The U.S. becomes the primary target. Third, this move damages diplomatic credibility globally. Even some U.S. allies might look at this and wonder, if the CIA will help target a head of state today, where does this stop? What's the definition of a legitimate target in this new era of precision-guided CIA-driven warfare? However, from the CIA's perspective, the risk might be calculated. By ensuring the success of this high-precision strike, they achieve several critical objectives. 1. Strategic neutralization. It degrades Iran's ability to command and control its proxy forces, like Hezbollah, the Houthis, and various militias in Iraq, Syria, potentially saving more lives and stopping regional destabilization. 2. Restoring deterrence. It sends an unmistakable message to Iran and its allies that the U.S. has unmatched visibility and the ability to strike anyone, anywhere. 3. Preventing a larger war. The CIA might argue that a perfectly successful surgical strike is better than a botched one that leads to a much wider, messier conflict. By ensuring the surgical nature of the operation, they might have prevented the all-out retaliation that would follow a less precise, high-casualty strike. It's a shock-and-awe campaign delivered not by hundreds of bombers, but by an intelligence packet. It's a gamble that intelligence can replace a large-scale war. But is that a bet the world should be taking? This entire event is a sign that we have entered a new era. Forget everything you knew about military intelligence from the 20th century. This is not about spies and dead drops. This is about data dominance. We've seen the critical role of GeoINT satellites and ELINT signals, but you cannot run this operation on technology alone. The integration of data is where the magic and the danger happens. The CIA likely used sophisticated AI algorithms to fuse all this data. They would take historical satellite imagery, overlay it with real-time signal data, cross-reference it with encrypted communications, comment they might have breached, and use machine learning to predict the optimal attack window. Think about that for a second. The decision to strike, the timing, and the specific coordinates might have been generated by an algorithm designed to maximize the statistical probability of a structural failure. We are witnessing the first wars where the battlefield is pre-mapped and pre-gamed in a virtual environment by AI and then executed with robotic precision. But we must also consider the human intelligence. Technology has limits. Did the CIA have a source inside the compound? This is the most sensitive and explosive possibility. Our sources suggest that confirmatory human intelligence was used. Someone inside, perhaps a mid-level administrator, a security guard, or a service staff member, might have confirmed the presence of key leadership figures or verified the condition of critical systems. This human element is what often gives policymakers the final confidence to act. If the AI says, this bunker is 90% likely to succeed, but your human source says, the system just went down for maintenance, that information is invaluable. The discovery of a human mole in the heart of Khamenei's compound would trigger the mother of all internal purges within the regime. This paranoid environment, catalyzed by the knowledge of a betrayal, might be just as damaging to Iran's command structure as the missiles themselves. The new rules of war are, the side with the best integrated data, AI, satellites, human, and ELINT, wins, often before the first shot is fired. The traditional fog of war is being dissipated, but what replaces it might be something even more terrifying. An algorithm of war that moves faster than human diplomacy can react. This brings us to the most crucial question. Where do we go from here? The confirmed CIA intel on the Khamenei compound attack has lit a match under a geopolitical powder keg. We have entered uncharted territory. The precedent has been set. The CIA has actively engineered a direct attack on a critical center of Iranian political and military power. This isn't just about monitoring, it's about targeting. The immediate aftermath will be defined by Iranian escalation management. They must respond. They cannot let this go. But they are also vulnerable and paranoid about their own internal security. Watch for proxy-led strikes, perhaps more intense than usual, designed to inflict pain without triggering an all-out war that they now know they might lose. In the United States, this will reopen a massive debate about the CIA's role. Did this cross the line from intelligence support to kinetic involvement? Is the agency overreaching its mandate? But the largest, most existential question is this. Does this action and the data dominance it demonstrated actually prevent a wider war by creating a terrifying new level of deterrence? Or does it escalate it by removing the final diplomatic guardrails and forcing an adversary to retaliate with unpredictable brutality? We are watching a real-time stress test of the global security architecture. Thank you for sticking with us through this deep dive. This is the kind of analysis you won't get from a standard 30-second soundbite. This is complex, it's dangerous, and it's happening right now. Now, I want to hear from you. Given everything we have just dissected, the precision, the CIA's data fusion, the human intelligence, did the United States just prevent a massive war by engineering a surgical strike? Or did they just light the fuse for a global conflict that they cannot control? Let's get into the debate in the comments. Be specific. Let's look at the strategy. We're keeping a close eye on this developing situation, and we will bring you updates the second we get them. This is the kind of intelligence the public must understand. If you found this analysis valuable, make sure you share it. And if you're trying to wrap your head around the financial impact of this chaos, watch this video right here, where we break down how the Middle East conflict is affecting the global energy market. This is the kind of intelligence the public must understand. Now, I want to hear from you. Given everything we have just dissected, the precision, the CIA's data fusion, and the potential for a massive internal purge within the Iranian regime, I have a specific question for the comments section. Did the United States just prevent a massive, uncontrollable war by executing a surgical strike? Or did they just ignite the fuse for a global conflict they can no longer contain? I'll be down there in the comments reading your takes, so let's keep this high level. If you want to see how this intelligence operation is already rippling through the global stock market and what it means for your personal portfolio, click this video right here. It's the next logical step in this story, and it's where we break down the financial fallout that the news networks are terrified to touch. And look, if you value this kind of raw, deep dive analysis over the watered down headlines, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We are tracking the classified movements and the geopolitical chessboard in real time, and you don't want to be the last one to know when the next update drops. I'm your host, and this is Pulse 47. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and I'll see you in the next one.